Élie Halévy was a French philosopher and historian who wrote studies of the British utilitarians, the Book of Essays, era of Tyrannies, and a history of Britain from 1815 to 1914 that influenced British historiography. Biography. Élie Halévy was born in Étretat, Seine-Maritime, where his mother had fled as the German army marched on Paris. His father was the playwright Ludovic Halévy, his brother was the historian Daniel Halévy. His family was of Jewish descent, but his parents were Protestant and he was brought up as a Protestant. Halévy grew up surrounded by musicians, scholars, and politicians. After studying at the École Normale Supérieure, he received his doctorate in philosophy in 1901 with the theses The Platonic Theory of Knowledge and The Origins of Philosophical Radicalism. The latter formed the base of his first major study, The Formation of English Philosophical Radicalism. In an article of 1893, Halévy suggested that the great moral question of modern thought was how the abstract idea of duty could become a concrete aim of society. This question had first attracted him to the utilitarians, and he found at the core of their answer a fundamental contradiction. Utilitarianism, he said, was based on two principles. First, that the science of the legislator must bring together the naturally divergent interests of individuals in society, and, second, that social order comes about spontaneously through the harmony of individual interests. To Halévy, this exemplified two fundamental human attitudes toward the universe: the contemplation of the astronomer and the intervention of the engineer. In 1892, Émile Baume invited Halévy to lecture on English political ideas at the newly founded School of Political Science. After 1900, he alternated this course with another on the history of socialism. At the same time, he helped found the Revue de Métaphysique de Morale, in which he retained an interest until his death. Halévy's teaching led him to undertake annual trips to England, during which he became the intimate friend of many of the most important scholars and political figures of the age. He thoroughly explored the Jeremy Bentham manuscripts at Cambridge for his work on philosophical radicalism, and over the years developed a deep and intensive knowledge of all the sources of 19th-century English history. In 1901 he began to work on the first volume of his masterpiece, The History of the English People in the 19th Century. In this first volume, he described England in 1815 and sought to explain how England avoided violent social change. If economic facts explain the course taken by the human race, he wrote, the England of the 19th century was surely, above all other countries, destined to revolution, both politically and religiously. Neither the British Constitution nor the established church was strong enough to hold the country together. He found the answer in religious non-conformity. Methodism was the antidote to Jacobinism. He did not write his history in chronological sequence, nor did he live to complete it. The second and third volumes of this history carried the story up to 1841. Then Halévy, profoundly moved by World War I, turned his attention to the period from 1895 to 1914. The two volumes on this period were written with considerable detachment, considering the immediacy of the problems he discussed. Together with Célestin Boulet, he would republish a set of Saint-Simonian lectures of the 1830, bundled in the 1924 work Doctrine de Saint-Simon. In lectures of 1929, revised in 1936, Halévy argued that the World War had increased national control over individual activities and opened the way for de facto socialism. In opposition to those who saw socialism as the last step in the French Revolution, he saw it as a new organization of constraint replacing those that the Revolution had destroyed. Wallace translates. In what proved to be his last work, Halévy began to bridge the gap between 1841 and 1895 with a volume entitled The Age of Peel and Cobden. A liberal individualist to the last, Halévy died at Sucy-en-Brie on the 21st of August 1937. His publishers posthumously commissioned R. B. McCallum to contribute a supplementary essay to link this volume with the concluding ones, the whole appearing under the title Victorian Years in 1961. Publications. Books. L'Atelier platonicien des sciences, Paris. Félix Alcan. La formation du radicalisme philosophique, Paris. Félix Alcan. La jeunesse de Bentham 1776–1789. La révolution de la doctrine utilitaire de 1789 à 1815. Le radicalisme philosophique. Thomas Hodgkin, Paris. Librairie Georges Belay. Histoire du peuple anglais au XIXe siècle. L'Angleterre en 1815. Du lendemain de Waterloo à la veille du Reform Bill. De la crise du Reform Bill à l'avènement de Sir Robert Peel, 1830–1841. Le milieu du siècle, 1841–1852. Epilogue 1. Les impérialistes au pouvoir, 1895–1914. Epilogue 2. Vers la démocratie sociale et vers la guerre, 1895–1914. Élie Halévy des Tyrannies, Préqf. De Célestin Boulet. Histoire du socialisme européen, Paris. Gallimard. Works in English translation. The Growth of Philosophic Radicalism. New York, The Macmillan Company. The World Crisis of 1914–1918, An Interpretation. Oxford, Clarendon. History of the English People in the 19th Century. Translated by E. I. Watkin. London, Ernest Benn Limited. England in 1815. The Liberal Awakening. The Triumph of Reform. Victorian Years. Imperialism and the Rise of Labour. The Rule of Democracy. Thomas Hodgkin. London, Ernest Benn Limited. The Era of Tyrannies. Essays on Socialism and War. Translated by R.K. Webb. Notes by Fritz Stern. New York, Doubleday. Selected articles. Halévy, Élie. Chartism. The Quarterly Review, Volume 236, Number 468, pp. 62–75. Halévy, Élie. Where England Stands at Present. The Living Age, Volume 314, Number 4078, September 2nd, pp. 569–574. Halévy, Élie. The Age of Tyrannies. Economica. 8, 77–93. DO 10.2307, 2,549,522. JSDOR 2,549,522.